now look at some other aspects of religion. So first of all, the types of religious worship, and they follow the same principles as the evolution of organized religion in general. So the individualistic, shamanistic, communal and ecclesiastical religions. In the individualistic religion, there is no intermediary between human and gods and the divine. No priests, no specialized professionals. Everybody is doing their own rituals and other spiritual practices. In the shamanistic religion, there are part-time religious specialists or magicians or shaman. They are ordinary participants in the local community, doing other things like, I don't know, tending farm animals or farming or doing, I don't know, hunting. But sometimes during the ceremonies they participate as special intermediaries between the human and the deity. Then we have a communal type of religion. There is a special group. So people characterized by, I don't know, a certain age or perhaps belonging to a certain clan or family that participate in performing rituals, for example, celebrating the passing of the seasons or the rites of passage. And the more common form of organized religion nowadays is, of course, the fully developed ecclesiastical religion with the hierarchy of full-time religious specialists. So we have all kinds of priests and monks and nuns and bishops and all that. There are, of course, I would say, variations between different religious denominations, but in each of them there is a hierarchy of full-time religious specialists. Here we have some data, statistical data about the largest religious groups in the world nowadays. So the most numerous religion is Christianity, with 32% of the people. More than 2 billion people are Christian, out of which 1.1 billion are Catholics. The Protestants are around 0.8 billion. There are some other groups that are derived from Christianity, which would really complete the number. The second largest religion is Islam, 23% of the population, 1.6 billion people. Then Hinduism, 1 billion people, 15% of the population. And Buddhism, 500 million people and 7% of the population. I already mentioned around a quarter of the population of the world are not religious. As you can see, among these religions, the two largest, so Christianity and Islam, can be called the Abrahamic religions, together with Judaism, the oldest of the three, which share many characteristic features together. They might have been opponents historically in politics and even military conflicts, but in terms of religion and philosophy, they share a lot in common. For example, all three are monotheistic. They believe in one supreme God. They believe that God revealed himself to Abraham. So Abraham is the prophet for all three Abrahamic religions. They see God as the creator of the universe and the source of moral law. They believe in religious texts, which they think are divinely inspired. Of course, not all these religions follow all the texts. So for Judaism, it would be the Old Testament. For Christianity, the Old and New Testaments. And for Islam, the Quran. But many of the figures and stories featured there are very similar. They also all feature Jerusalem as the holy city. All these Abrahamic religions also share the so-called eschatological worldview, which means that, according to these religions, the world moves towards its end, towards the end times or the apocalypse or the creation of the new world, but anyway, it's a kind of finite process. Let's now look a little bit at the history of Christianity, because, well, this is the English Studies department, and we are mostly interested in the history of the British Isles and perhaps America to some extent as well. So Christianity is the dominant religion in Britain and generally in Europe, if you think of that. So again, these slides are quite packed, so it would be a good idea to look at them once again at a slower pace, but just very quickly. Christianity is a sect of Judaism which appeared in the 1st century of the Common Era on the outskirts of the Roman Empire. Actually, in the English language, the word sect is not negative, it's not pejorative, it just means a small group within a religion. The pejorative word is a cult, not a sect. A sect is something completely neutral. They were persecuted by the Romans. Later they were tolerated and made a state religion in the year 380. Then, of course, Christianity spread, reaching Europe and Britain in the 5th century. Saint Augustine and Saint Patrick. Saint Augustine spread Christianity in Great Britain. Saint Patrick in Ireland. A very important phase in the development of Christianity in Britain, or the British Isles, because also in Ireland, was the period of monasticism, so the creation of monasteries. There are some ruins. They were mostly destroyed during the Middle Ages. In Britain they would be destroyed by the Viking raids, but some places in Ireland, but also some remote locations within the British Isles like Iona or Lindisfarne Island. The important moment in the history of Christianity in Britain was the Synod of Whitby of 664, which decided to accept the Roman version of Christianity, so basically Roman Catholicism. In 1054 there was the Great Schism, which created the East and West versions of Christianity, so the Russian Orthodox Church was developed then. In 1170, Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was murdered in the Canterbury Cathedral by the Knights of King Henry II. Later it became the site of pilgrimage, remembered, for example, in Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. There were common disputes and conflicts between the civil and ecclesiastical powers. Ecclesiastical means related to the church. Then the Reformation happened, and a lot of this influenced Britain. So we have John Wycliffe and the Lollards, who were against the demoralization of the clergy, the greed of the church, things like selling the offices of the church. They supported the English translation of the Bible. This is an international phenomenon happening in Europe. So we have, for example, Jan Hus in the now Czech Republic, who proposed the reform of the church and the abolition of church hierarchy. He himself was executed by burning at the stake, but the wars followed, the Hussite Wars. The Inquisition was established, so the special, I would say, church police or church prosecuting office for the persecution of heretics. The witch hunting happened in Europe and the British Isles. We still do not know, we'll perhaps never know how many victims there were in Europe of the witch hunts. Some scholars say it's from 60,000 up to 9 million people who were killed during these witch hunts. Then in 1517, Martin Luther, a former monk, published his 95 Theses in Wittenberg. So here we have the image of Martin Luther attaching the theses to the church door in Wittenberg. There were some other important reformers in Switzerland, such as Ulrich Zwingli or John Calvin. They were all read in Britain. Especially Calvin was especially respected in Scotland. So the Scottish version of Protestantism follows John Calvin, for example. Then, of course, we have the establishment of the Church of England. So in 1534, by the Act of Supremacy, King Henry VIII declares himself the supreme head of the Church of England. For personal reasons, to divorce his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and marry his second wife, Anne Boleyn. What follows is the dissolution of monasteries, so the monasteries are disbanded and the money is taken by the crown. Edward VI, the son of Henry VIII, introduces the Book of Common Prayer with more Protestant forms of worship and printed in English language. He didn't live very long. He died as a teenager, but from his very early age he was brought up to be a Protestant, and he had many rather fundamentalist religious advisors. Then we have the Civil War in the 17th century between King Charles I and the Puritan members of Parliament, who wanted more strict moral codes in the Church of England. And in the later 17th century, we have the Glorious Revolution, when during the restoration of the Stuarts, King James II is deposed by his daughter Mary II and her husband William of Orange for being Catholic. So from the time of the Glorious Revolution in the late 17th century, you cannot be a Catholic if you want to be the King of England. Here we have a rather, I would say, sarcastic comment from one of the great critics of organized religion, Christopher Hitchens. This is what you get when you found a political system on the family values of Henry VIII. Amen, I would say, yes. This wasn't for any religious, philosophical, theological reasons. He just wanted to divorce one woman and marry another. So whatever happens later is just trying to build a philosophy on that. We don't have time really to discuss the Church of England in greater detail. You'll probably hear about it more during your later studies. Let's now look perhaps to finish off at the Queen, because nowadays, after Henry VIII, each monarch of Great Britain of the United Kingdom is the supreme head or the supreme governor of the Church of England, and also has the additional title of Defender of the Faith, the title that was given to Henry VIII by the Pope for defending Catholicism. Well, poor Pope didn't know how it would end. So the Queen, yes, holds this title because why not? What can she do? She appoints archbishops, bishops, deans of cathedrals. She does not choose these people, she just appoints them on the advice of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister also does not choose these people. They are chosen by the church leaders, by the General Synod, so by the kind of committee governing the church. Since the 1980s, women can become priests and bishops in the Church of England, Anglican priests can marry. They are even expected. There are some social functions reserved for the vicar's wife, so it's an important local person. There is some controversy over same-sex marriage. Clergy are not allowed they are allowed civil partnerships if they want, but generally the attitudes are tolerant. Religious education is compulsory at state schools, so children are taught about the different religions, but Christianity is given preference, so of course being the dominant religion in Britain. And if you look at the last slide, we have the situation of religious belief in modern United Kingdom, and as you can see, almost half of the population are not religious. They are non-believers, agnostics, atheists. The remaining half, almost 20% of them are Anglican. Less than 10% are Catholic. Catholicism is absolutely allowed in Britain. It was restored in the 19th century after the years of persecution during the Reformation. Other Christians constitute more than 15% of the population, and non-Christian religions, all of them, like the Muslims and the Jews and the Buddhists and the Hindus and everyone else who follows a non-Christian religion, constitutes 7.7% of the population in the modern UK. So as you can see, it's perhaps no longer an important philosophical thing for people in Britain, but still quite important cultural phenomenon. And of course, you do not have to be religious to celebrate Christmas. So I wish you all the best for the coming holidays, and see you in the new year. Thank you.